Knananites came from Mesopotamia or the current lower part of the Iraq. What made this Knanaya community to split into Knanaya Catholics and Knanaya Jacobites?
What happened there is no good record of what happened between the 4th century and maybe between the 15th century. The Syrian Christians, we were able to get pastoral support, continuation of bishops and all that from Antioch. So we had a continuity of support in terms of spiritual, but the Christians in Kerala did not follow exactly what they were doing. We retained some level of independence. We were not under Rome, we were not following the Latin Rite, but we were following the Eastern Rite. At the same time, we retained some level of independence. But we are following the Syriac, the Armenian, that kind of rite for the liturgy, the worship and all that. But ever since the European colonialists, starting with Portugal, started coming to India, when they came to India, starting with Portugal people and then French and English and all that, they realized that there are Christians here, they have their forms of worship and all that, but they thought this is pagan. They thought our worship and liturgy is Nestorian in origin. So they thought we have deviated from the true Roman Church. So
actually, is this Knanaya people and the
all the Syrian
Christians,
all the Syrian Christians, they were only Christians.
Only Christians. There was no divisions at that time.
No.
No Martoma, no Jacobe, nothing. Only Christians.
Only Christians.
So, but it was a peaceful community at that time.
Yeah. But ever since these colonial powers, Portuguese and people came, they were starting to evangelize and convert people, and they were following the Latin Rite. Those people whom the colonialists converted, they were following the Latin Rite.
The Latin roots means from the Rome.
From Rome.
Okay.
So the bishops came. Portugal had their authority over, to some extent, the way they will appoint the bishops and all that. So they were kind of a dual sharing of power, the church and the king.
Oh.
Again, coming back to the point, these Portuguese people and other people, they misunderstood our forms of worship. They thought this is pagan. So they wanted to totally change it. I am sure their intentions were good, but they were unable to understand that this was apostolic in origin, that this is also another rite,
culture,
another rite. There are 4 or 5 different rites at that time.
Is that all these people are under they are Christians, or they're
all Christians? All Christians. Yeah, all under Pope. But they were following different rites.
Different rites from different part of the world.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, they were all independent in that, from what I understand, there were 4 different liturgies in the world, starting with St. Paul, St. Peter, and other people. So they were all independent. They were all the same, basically in content. Okay. But the sequence of prayers.
But the language was different.
Language was different. The sequence of prayers were different, but the main elements were all the same.
Okay, so then why they are fighting in between?
So this is what I was saying, that probably they misunderstood, so they wanted to destroy
or
our right.
Yeah.
So they called a synod in the town called Udayamparoor, which was again a town dominated by Knanaya Christians.
I saw a picture of Udayamparoor Church in your book.
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened was the Bishop Menesis, he took over the synod and he destroyed all these things. He made all the rules.
What he destroyed?
All the liturgy, all the forms of worship with the Syrian Christians were doing at that time. So he forcibly changed
banned
them,
okay.
And then that continued, and then at that point people couldn't take anymore, because we have tried to get back our liturgy. So they all
What is that bishop name? Bishop
Menesis.
So he belonged to the Portuguese.
Latin,
Portuguese.
It's a Portuguese.
Based upon Goa, right?
Goa. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, as it is said, so many of the people who are unable to bear this kind of imposition of their rites, their forms of worship on us, they assembled in Fort Cochin in Mattancherry, and they tied ropes to this cross, and they took a vow that we are not going to follow Rome. So that's what the coonan cross oath.
Okay.
Coonan kurisu satyam in Malayalam.
So
that was where the Christians in Kerala split into two groups. One, the majority still continued with Rome. The other group split, and they said we have nothing to do with Rome. We have our own church.
Actually, do you think the Portuguese kind of poisoned the innocent Christians living in Kerala and tried to change 360 degrees their spiritual way of doing things, and it was a big failure, and people kind of divided into two communities.
Probably that's what I said before. No, they misunderstood. They thought they had good intentions. They did not think that these were still following the path of Christianity as practiced in Rome or other Latinized countries. So that's why they want to bring about everything unity.
Or they misunderstood, or they don't want to listen to the lay people. They are kind of, you mentioned they are also very shared power with the local kings. So they are forcefully dictate, okay, you do this, you come here and do this, something like that, so that people kind of react.
Rebel. That's exactly what you said. So they probably misused their authority, and then tried to force upon the Syrian Christians all these things which they have been following for 10 centuries or more.
It's like a little politics there.
It was
a big time politics.
In those days.
Without asking without
the understanding of the trying to find out what exactly
what is the community want or community wish. This leaders try to change the color of their skin. Okay. So again, so the people, those who oppose or rebelled, become the
Jacobite group. So they anointed their own bishops, and which was probably something deviant from the traditional way of what we laying hands on. Only a bishop can.
So they are connected to Antioch here.
Antioch. To be good, They were the east, Syrian East, and they followed the Antiochian rites.
And the Catholic Knanaya Jacobites followed the Antiochian rite, and Knanaya Catholics followed the Latin rites. Okay, so it was basically
Latin rite in the sense we followed popes, the canons and everything.
Okay, so
even though the liturgy was in Aramaic.
Okay, so basically the community those who came from Iran and Iraq or the Mesopotamia, so they were living peacefully in Kerala, and because of this European influence, the community divided into two, and that was, when was that? 1600 or when? Okay, so then.
And then from then on, of course, then the Christian community is split into two groups. And then later on, with all the differences of opinion, with the arrival of different people with the different thinking, the Jacobite group again split. So that was the beginning of the Marthamite group. And then, of course, now there are several divisions again with the advent of the British, the Anglican Church, and several other Pentecostal churches. All these, and we have just about every denomination that you can think of, we have it in Kerala.
So you have to imagine think about this. Jesus Christ he only started one community, and all these denominations are made by man.
Man-made. This is all man-made. It's only one good news which Jesus gave.
But people twisted into different ways and different notes and changed the whole face of the
message. The message has been interpreted in different ways. Start people interpreting Bible in their own way. You know.
Whatever the way they want, they just started doing it. Yeah. So tell me about what happened after that. This Syrian Catholics, Syrian Knananites, and the Malabar Christians were living in Kerala. And what happened? How the Syro-Malabar rites started in Kerala.
The first diocese built in Koilon, way back.
Diocese of Syro-Malabar diocese?
No, it was a Latin diocese. But
okay.
It was a Syrian Christian diocese built by the St. Thomas, the Koilon, the church. And then this was patronized and being manned by priests and other people who were coming from the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
After the Portuguese arrived, they kind of destroyed all those things, and then we were told the bishop was killed, and there was some quarrel between Muslims and some people killed, and then this sort of thing continued, and then I forget the dates. They formed two Christian dioceses in Kerala, one in Cochin and one in Ernakulam,
mm-hmm.
with foreign missionaries as bishops.
Okay.
And then the clamor to get native bishops continued.
That was actually a small strategy, like put the foreign bishops first, slowly sneak in the local bishops.
Yeah, probably that was a strategy. Maybe they planted themselves, get the footing, and then once they established, then we can. Of course, we were clamoring for the native bishops, and what they did was we had three native bishops. One in Changanashiri, Bishop Makil, Bishop Udayamparoor, and Bishop Mattancherry, Trachur, and Ernakulam. So those were three native bishops, and then that continued. And then, of course, Bishop Makil was a member of the minority community, the Knanaya community. He was the bishop living in Changanashiri. He did a lot of good things. First of all, he put together a booklet of catechism, a book of catechism, and that is still one of the business. Samshipta Vedovadesha Samkshevam.
Oh, that's the book.
That's still one of the catechism books that we have been following. Another major work he did was the book of decrees.
Okay.
He codified, he compiled the canons, the laws, how to govern a diocese. So that's one of the things. Again, his period as a bishop, you can see so many pastoral letters he sent to exhorting people to avoid alcoholism, about drinking, how to improve in their faith, how to do different things. He established convents, different forms of improving the faith. So he was a very, very illustrious spiritual leader. But at some point, being a member of the minority, he was unable to get all total control over the people of the diocese. So he requested his other two co-bishops, the bishops in Trachur and in Ernakulam, to petition Pope so that he can be relieved being the bishop of Changanashiri and maybe allowed to move to a smaller group just to govern the Knanaya community. So this was a big sacrifice on his part, but again this was a noble move on his part, because if he is unable to be a true spiritual leader, if the community doesn't accept him as the true leader, he won't be able to be an effective leader. So
So actually he kind of
abdicated,
sacrificed,
abdicated and moved from like a big bungalow or a castle, moved to a small shed in Cochin. So then.
So he did that for the community. Yeah, that was, I think.
There was also rumors that people were trying to murder him or poison him.
Who?
Some of the people who didn't like him.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's better we don't go into all those controversial things. It's kind of difficult for people to accept that this did happen.
Okay. So based upon that, he so he moved to
Cochin. So he created. So Pope Pius X was able to in 1910 create a new diocese.
So what?
In 1913, a new diocese with headquarters in Cochin.
So what is the force driven him to form the Cochin diocese for Knananites? See, right now, when you look into back, there was no high tech, there's no electricity, there's no motorized cars. In your book, I seen that a bullock cart, his bullock cart. What I'm saying is, the technology was not that much developed at the time, so he maybe did a hell of a work to establish Cochin diocese by communicating with the Romans. I heard that he went months and months, stayed in Rome for the establishment or getting a
He took the consent, the signature, the joint petition by the Pope decided he will create a new diocese exclusively for the Southeast, the Knanaya community, Knanaya Catholics. So he moved to Cochin, which is the headquarters of that diocese.
Okay. Cochin diocese is just because of Bishop Mackill's hard work. If he wouldn't do that, and there won't be a Cochin diocese.
No.
So basically, we have to really. He's a role model. Something was in his dream. Okay, I want a diocese with Knanaya people, and all the parishes are exclusively for Knanaya peoples who practice, endogamy and just stick together, just like the Knai Thomas strategy.
I know. Probably there might be a little difference of opinion. That was not necessarily his vision.
Okay.
I am sure the vision was to coexist the Southeast and Northeast while retaining each community's traditions. For example, the uniqueness of Knanaya community. When that became impossible, as a minority person, if he was unable to govern the total community, the majority community and the minority community, then he was left with no other choice to part company with the majority community and make a move and create a diocese exclusively for Knanaya Catholics. While he was creating this exclusive diocese for Southeast, Pope also decreed that no force on earth can undo this. In other words, no Pope or no other power on earth can make this diocese disintegrate. This will continue as long as world exists. So the boundaries were all these parishes, but the boundaries were more in terms of personal jurisdiction. Wherever the Knananites person lived, he belonged to the Cochin diocese, no matter whether he was.
Okay.
But then originally it was within the geographical boundaries of Kerala.
Okay.
But then it was extended in later year that wherever Knanaya lived. But in case of Jacobites, it's a different story. The Jacobite metropolitan who is in Chingavana, Chingavana Bhadrasram as they call it, he has personal jurisdiction over the Knanaya Jacobites all over the world.
So why can't this Knananites doesn't have that personal jurisdiction all over the world?
That is something which I believe the Knanaya community all over the world are trying to appeal to Rome and try to get that status changed. Things don't happen fast. Rome takes its time. They have to be convinced that this is a thing in the best interest of that community. Until we are able to convince them, this may not happen.
Do you think that convincing part is so hard, or is that much hard like when Bishop Markil did in 1913, especially with the technology and the advancement of the communication?
I believe part of it is that there is some misunderstanding or misinterpretation of what endogamy is all about. Many people think that the Knanaya community is trying to remain as a royal community, or as a superior race, or to retain the purity of blood and all that. So that's not necessarily the case. Now, this community had the authority to continue as a community by the Pope. So unless and until the community decides we don't need this exclusiveness, they should be allowed to do that. But probably some of those thinking has crept into the minds of other leaders, and that's probably the reason they are dragging their feet until they are convinced that this is something which Pope Pius X granted, and it is up to the community to decide whether they want to continue as a community or not. They should be allowed to do that.
And definitely we don't want another Udayamparoor Synodos and Kurisu Satyam at this time, So, hope, the community will stay together and it's not going to divide one more time.
I hope that's the case, better, councils prevail, and we have to be patient and persevering, just like things happen in Washington. In Rome also moves very slowly.
But Washington is pretty fast. Decisions made based upon the majority's decisions.